Deciding to build your own golf simulator is a huge decision with a wide variety of costs and considerations to take into account. It's been 5 years since I first started the build process for my home sim, and in that time, I can tell you there are two elements that really matter the most. Today, we're talking about one of those, the launch monitor, and what I've learned so far. Let's go. The launch monitor you ultimately choose to buy has the potential to either make or break your experience in your home sim. The good news is there are a ton of options out there to choose from. The bad news is there are a ton of options out there to choose from. I had spent a outrageous amount of time trying to figure out what ultimately was going to be the right monitor for me and my setup with the limitations of space and ultimately the type of data that I was looking to gather from the launch monitor that I was ultimately going to purchase. Because for me, it was a big decision and had the potential to be the single largest expense in my home simulator build. Well, at the end of the day, I ended up deciding on the Foresight GC3, and after 4 years of living with that decision, let's talk about what I've learned. The first point to bring up is that you're never going to want less data out of the launch monitor you ultimately buy. And whether you're looking at any of the manufacturer websites from Foresight Sports to Full Swing to Unicore or somebody like TrackMan, front and center on each of their web pages is the stat sheet of all of the different data metrics that each individual launch monitor is going to be giving you. And whether that's ball data specific or club data, each launch monitor is ultimately looking to distinguish themselves in whatever price point tier that they're operating in. And we're talking about something as small as a couple $100s in like a Rhapsody unit or some of the smaller Garmin units, or something in the TrackMan or Full Swing range where you're getting up as high as $40,000 to $60,000. So knowing what amount of data that you want to get out of your launch monitor and what is ultimately important to you is going to be one of the most important things, because you don't want to purchase something and then months into that purchase realize that it's not enough and you wish you would have gotten something a little bit more elevated. But at the same time, that also brings in another avenue that you could possibly go down when shopping for your launch monitor with some of the different tiered or subscription models that exist out there. The most important thing is figuring out what is right for you and the needs that you're looking to get out of the monitor that you're ultimately purchasing. Lesson number two is you get what you pay for when it comes to accuracy and quality of the product. At the end of the day, you really have to ask yourself, how much error are you okay with accepting? Because all of these launch monitors are going to have an inherent amount of error incorporated into the calculations or the sensors that they are utilizing on the given launch monitor. And that's from a camera-based monitor like the GC3, which utilizes 3 different high-speed cameras to detect the impact and ultimately the immediate ball flight coming off the club face, or a lot of the radar-based launch monitors that exist out there, which are having to do a lot of interpolations or calculations based on what their sensors are picking up on a given ball strike or ball flight. Additionally, there are some camera and radar-based launch monitors that use both sensors together to try to find the best of both worlds. Really, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to do your own research in order to determine which type of sensor is gonna work best for you. And that's ultimately going to fit in with when you are building your simulator, what kind of space do you have to work with? For my home sim specifically, when I was first building it, I didn't have a ton of room. So needing 12 feet of ball flight in order for a radar-based launch monitor to work in terms of the space in front or space behind, each sensor is ultimately different. I didn't have that space available to me, so I was pretty much hamstrung in needing to use a camera-based launch monitor, and I had to find what was the best option for me within the price range I was looking to spend for the sim that I was looking to put together and the data that I ultimately wanted to collect. So do your own research. I'll include some links down below and some articles that you can read up on with whether radar-based or camera-based is best for you, and some of the details and specifics behind why each or the other think that they have the best solution for you. Just to dig into this a little bit more to hopefully give you a more solid foundation as to why would you pick one sensor over another. Next up is the applications and the ecosystem that comes with your launch monitor is ultimately almost as important as the launch monitor itself. And one of the important things that you're gonna have to do is ask yourself, how are you planning on using this launch monitor? Are you just looking to bang balls in the garage in order to stay fresh? Or are you gonna try to work on your game and you need a little bit more specific details on what the different shots are doing and being able to profile different clubs, or how that's going to feed into different things that are coming out with the Foresight and Bushnell partnerships that exist out there, and incorporating their different rangefinders and the MyLink technology that exists out there? Or are you looking to have your own shop and you want to make some fine tuning and you need that specific information out of the shots that you're ultimately hitting, and you need to categorize that and then do analysis before and after you make those changes to know if it was good or bad, or moving things in the direction that you're ultimately going for? Because at the end of the day, the interface that you choose to go with is ultimately going to determine the quality of experience that you're going to have in that home sim. And there are different interfaces that exist out there, like the Garmin R50, that is pretty much a one-stop shop. You can just plug it into a projector or into a TV, or just use the unit itself with the screen that it has on there, and you can run all the software that's on it. Or you could have a company like Foresight, which has a wide variety of different software applications, from play to practice to fitting and all the in-betweens, in order to utilize the data that you are getting off of these devices. At the end of the day, you are really gonna have to figure out what it is, again, and that's the theme of this video in a lot of cases, is how are you planning on using this launch monitor and setting yourself up for success for whatever you end up purchasing down the road. Lesson number 4 is don't have left-handed friends or kids, or if you're left-handed, don't have right-handed friends or kids. And this is largely going to come down to what type of launch monitor you need to purchase with the space available and your intended use. If you have people who are hitting from both sides of the ball, choosing something like this that is camera-based is pretty prohibitive when it comes to having multiple people play at the same time. So if that is your intended use, where you want to have a bunch of buddies over, or you want to play with your kids and you're having to switch this thing back and forth, in my experience, it pretty much kills the fun in the situation, just because of the amount of switching that has to occur back and forth, the time that it takes, the software interactions that are ultimately needed to do so, and swapping it back and forth both on the device itself, physically moving it to the other side of the hitting mat, so on and so forth. It just makes it less enjoyable at the end of the day. But that brings in some options where you have plenty of overhead units that is not a factor, or radar-based units that are behind you that is ultimately not a factor as well. So you just have to make sure you're thinking about who's going to be using this, and again, the how are you going to be using this device. Point number 5 is portability doesn't really matter as much as you would think, but it is a nice feature ultimately to have at the end of the day, if you do want to take it out on the range or out on the course with you. Here I've got the GC3, and you can see with an internal battery, even though some of the lower tiered options in the GC3 line specifically now don't have an internal battery, so there's strictly a fixed unit for your home simulator. But with 5 to 7 hours of battery life, you could take it out on the course, you could take it to the range if you wanted to. I have just found personally that in the entire time that I have had the home simulator set up, it's something that I haven't really desired to take out with me on the course. I haven't really done any kind of on-course testing where I've wanted the information or the numbers off the launch monitor itself. So I think it's just important to kind of know that going into the purchasing. And just in my experience specifically, it's something that I didn't want to have to worry about out on the course and be taken care of in the back of a golf cart while I'm out playing around. But with that being said, and if it's something that is important to you and you're looking at a ground-based unit versus an overhead unit and you want that portability, you're kind of making the decision up for yourself there. And then you can start looking in more specific to either a ground-based radar or a ground-based camera based on the type of setup that you're looking for. There's so many options, like I said at the beginning of this video, out there, and it's kind of mind-numbing to a degree, but knowing ultimately how you're gonna wanna use this launch monitor is hands down the most important thing to start this search when you're trying to figure out which one you're ultimately gonna purchase. So my top 5 takeaways after working with the same launch monitor for the last 4 years are: you are never gonna want less data out of the launch monitor that you ultimately buy. You get what you pay for when it comes to accuracy and quality of the product at the end of the day. The applications in and the software that you ultimately are gonna get with the launch monitor matter almost as much as the launch monitor itself. So you wanna be sure that you're paying attention to that in the purchasing process. 4, and kind of a joke, but also kind of serious in terms of how you're using it, is don't have left-handed friends or right-handed friends hitting from the opposite side of the way that you're setting up your home sim. And then lastly, portability doesn't really matter as much as you would think, but it is a nice to have if it's something that you want to be able to do with your launch monitor at the end of the day. If you're in the market for your own launch monitor or you're just starting your search, I hope this video gives you a variety of different things to maybe think about in order to refine what it is that you value for your final purchase that you're looking to make, and whether that's camera or radar or overall setup or the type of data that you are looking to get out of the monitor itself. And then if you do have a differing opinion and you think that there are different points that are more important when making this purchase, let me know down in the comments, and I would love to kind of hear a different perspective from those of you out there who do have your own launch monitor or home sim. As well, I will be putting a variety of different resources that I have referenced in the past down in the description of this video, so go ahead and run down there. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon.